Futurama first aired on Fox in 1999 and quickly became known as a comedy of the future. With its wacky characters, crazy plots, and sci-fi antics, the show kept the laughs coming throughout its 7 seasons. Just because a show can make you laugh doesn't mean it can't make you cry. In fact, Futurama is as well known for its bittersweet and heartbreaking moments as it is for its jokes. But which of these moments is the saddest? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Futurama Moments, Sad to Saddest. This list is all about the tearjerkers. If a moment made you cry or even misty-eyed, it'll probably be on this list. Moments that are bittersweet or have a happy moment afterwards will be lower on the list, while the ones that are more sad or tragic will be higher. With that said, let's get started. At the bottom of our list, we have the reveal of Leelas Parents. This moment was a long time coming, and for many fans, we're sure it was more cathartic than sad. Due to Leela being the least mutated human ever, her mutant parents decided to give her up to the orphanarium. Figuring that she could pass as an alien, her parents wanted to give her a chance at a normal life, instead of forcing her to live in the sewers.
What a beautiful, gigantic eye you have!
Shortly after this flashback, Fry stopped Leela from killing her parents, revealing them for who they are. As the three of them hug, we're treated to a small montage of Leela's parents being there for her in secret, making her rough childhood better. While this is a tearjerker, we can't call it sad. It is sad that Leela had to grow up without them, but this episode showed that she was never alone. Her family was always looking out for her. Additionally, Leela gets to spend time with her parents in future episodes. While this can't make up for her childhood without them, Leela has the opportunity to bond with them, along with knowing where she came from. If Leela's parents had died, or if there was something else preventing her from visiting them, this moment would have been more sad. As it is now, it's heartwarming and bittersweet. Next is Fry learning the truth. Fry is called upon by the Nibleonians to save the universe and stop the brain spawn. However, what starts out as a simple mission quickly goes wrong, and for a moment, it looks like Fry is about to die alongside the brain spawn. In an attempt to save themselves and turn Fry against the Nibleonians, the brain spawn reveal what truly happened to Fry. Though he always thought his freezing was an accident, Fry learns that it actually been Nibbler that caused Fry to fall into the cryogenic chamber. It's a shocking twist, and one the writers had apparently planned since the beginning. What makes this moment hurt is Fry's response when Nibbler asks him, what is one life weighted against the entire universe?
But it was my life.
Ugh. You feel bad for Fry in that moment. But like with our last entry, it's the rest of the episode along with the rest of the series that stops it from being put any higher. Fry realizes that it's worth being in the future if he's able to save his friends. And though he'll always miss his old life, he's able to create a happy life for himself in the future. It's sad, but it's not exactly tragic or heartbreaking, so it gets a low spot on this list. Next is Leelas Message at the End of Time. The late Philip J. Fry is a silly episode with time travel shenanigans and wacky futures, but underneath the laughs, there's a B-plot that once again shows how much Fry and Leela care about each other. When Fry, Bender, and the professor go missing and are assumed dead, Leela takes over Planet Express, becoming more work-focused, lonely, and bitter as the years go on. She remains angry at Fry for ditching her birthday dinner, but still clearly misses him.
Hi, Q-Bert.
Towards the end of the B-plot, Leela learns that Fry's disappearance hadn't been his fault, and that she had been angry at him for nothing. With this new information, Leela goes to the restaurant where they would have had their dinner, and leaves a message for him on the floor. Fry is able to finally read this message in the year 1 billion, and cries after doing so. At this point, Fry and the others didn't know that time was circular. In Fry's perspective, not only did he never get to say goodbye to Leela, but now he knew that her life had been worse without him. Despite their will they, won't they dynamic, moments like these show the love between Fry and Leela. We had to drop this moment a few rankings, as Fry is eventually able to make it back to the year 3000, and even arrives at the date a few minutes early, leading to a pretty heartwarming ending. Following that is Fry's forced goodbye. A mysterious ship threatens to destroy the planet with a deafening sound, a sound that actually seems familiar to Fry. In order to figure out what the sound is, Fry is sent into his dreams and gets to relive his last day in the year 2000. While in this dream, Fry realizes how much he missed his family, and that there were a lot of things he didn't get to say to them, especially to his mom. Unfortunately, before Fry is able to properly talk to his mom, the rest of the Planet Express crew force him to move on for the sake of the planet.
Hello, we're friends of Philip J. Fry.
They literally have to drag Fry out of his house, with Fry protesting and begging. Even when Fry gets free, the door to his home was already closed and his family was gone. Fry is completely devastated, actually falling to his knees. It's relatable, as we can all understand wanting to spend more time with family members who have passed away. So even if Fry wasn't shown to have a strong relationship with his mom in previous episodes, you can still understand and feel his emotions. Thankfully, by the end of the episode, Fry reunites with his mom in her dream, thanks to a bit of help from Nibbler. This is enough to stop us from putting the sadder moment from this episode any higher up. Our next saddest moment is Fry's failed love note. Fry can't catch a break, and there's more coming up. As for this, it's borderline cruel and sad. Fry attempts to win Leela's heart. At one point, they get married, but because time keeps skipping ahead and no one can remember what happened in between the skips, the two divorce. Ouch. Feeling like there's still a chance for love, Fry tries desperately to remember what he did that won Leela over. Eventually, he learns that he had moved a small cluster of stars to write a love note to Leela, a love note that Leela misses, and is blown up and sucked into a black hole. Though Fry tries to explain, he gives up and is left to stare out at space, heartbroken and alone once again. What makes this hit hard is how the episode ends after this, completely silent save for Bender's whistling. Though this is not the final episode of the series, and Fry will have other chances to romance Leela, it's rough because we can see how devastated Fry is. There's no bittersweet twist or final joke, only Fry sadly staring out the ship's window. It leaves an impact, so we felt that we had to give it a decent spot on our list. Next is the death of Lars. Bender's big score is a wild and confusing time travel story, even by Futurama standards. Lars is a paradox duplicate of Fry that lived in the year 2000 before returning to the future to be with Leela.
I'm Lars!
However, given that he is a paradox, it was clear that he likely wouldn't have a happy ending. Thankfully, Lars's eventual death wasn't in vain. After Nudar survives Farnsworth's doomsday device, he demands the time code from Lars, threatening to murder Leela if Lars doesn't give him what he wants. Lars then tricks Nudar by pulling out a self-destructing Bender paradox out of the freezer. Lars holds the Bender down over Nudar, and all three are killed. Through Lars's brave actions, Nudar is defeated. It's bittersweet. However, there is a streak of tragedy. Shortly after Lars Fry's death, he was thrilled to see Leela again. Fry had waited years and had been happy to finally be the type of mature boyfriend Leela had always wanted. If not for his sad fate as a paradox, he would have married her, something Fry has wanted to do for the better half of the series, but it wasn't meant to be. While Lars doesn't get his happily ever after with Leela, at least there's one version of Fry that eventually does. Speaking of death, we have the so-called death and funeral of Fry.
He's dead.
If you know the true ending of this episode, then this moment may not seem like much. But for the characters, and especially Leela, this is the heaviest loss that they've had up until that point. The death scene is also gruesome, with Fry getting impaled by the Space Bee's stinger, and this shot happening in slow motion, forcing us to take in the impact of the attack. Leela's slow realization of what happened and her reaction to seeing Fry dead and realizing that he saved her life are also impactful. Though the funeral scene had jokes, seeing Bender and Leela crying over Fry is upsetting. Top it off with some bagpipes and Fry getting shot into space like Spock at the end of Wrath of Khan, and you've got an effective funeral scene. We're sure you're all wondering why we're putting the red herring death scene on our list and not the ending of the episode. The ending, while emotional, is happy. Leela wakes up from her coma and learns that Fry is alive, making the ending more of a relief and heartwarming and sweet. Leela's nightmare before could qualify as sad, but it's more frightening and confusing. You could also argue that the whole episode was sad, but since we're ranking moments and not full episodes, we had to go with Fry's death. Next is Bender's sacrifice for Ben. Although some consider the later seasons of Futurama to be lacking, examples like this show that even the newer episodes can yank on the heartstrings. In this episode, Bender hooks up with a vending machine named Bev. They have a son named Ben, and although Bender is reluctant to take care of Ben at first, the two bond. Unfortunately, Ben is unable to bend due to inheriting weak arm control software from his mother. Ben also has one expansion slot which houses his memory card, meaning that he can't learn to bend without wiping his memory. Eventually, Bender recognizes how bad his son wants to bend and allows the professor to replace Ben's memory card with a bending software card. Even though Bender knows that Ben won't remember him, Ben takes the time to tell Ben that he loves him. It's heartbreaking, and given that it comes from Bender, the guy who drop-kicked another one of his kids into robot hell, it hurts even more. Though Bender has to live with his son not knowing who he is, he gets to see Ben fulfilling his dreams of bending, and gets him to Bending University.
Just remember, your daddy loves you.
While not a completely happy ending, it's enough to keep him from the very top of our list. Taking the runner-up spot, we have the ending of Luck of the Fryrish. Forget about the Breakfast Club. This ending is what most people associate with the song, Don't You Forget About Me. This episode was one of the few times there is a flashback to Fry's past, with this focusing on his brother, Yancey. Like typical siblings, the two of them never got along due to Yancey always stealing Fry's stuff. When Fry goes back to look for his old 7-leaf clover and sees that it's missing, he assumes that Yancey steals it. He later accuses his brother of stealing Fry's identity, using the luck from the 7-leaf clover to accomplish everything that Fry wanted to do. Of course, the truth is both much sweeter and much more heartbreaking. As it turned out, Yancey had taken the clover, but then gave it to his son, who he named after Fry in order to honor him. Not only that, but Yancey cared about Fry more than he let on, and he missed his younger brother. It's a moment that shows how deeply connected family can be with each other, even when it doesn't seem like it. Fry immediately regrets his anger and suspicion, and although he's unable to say thank you or say goodbye to Yancey, he gets to spend a moment with the body of his nephew, now proud of the other Philip J. Fry, for all that he had accomplished. While it's mostly tragic, as they never had a chance to reconcile, and Yancey died not knowing what happened to Fry, this scene falls short of the top of our list. The small smile Fry gives at the end of the episode, and the realization he has regarding how much his brother cared about him, manages to make this moment shift into being bittersweet, even if it's still mostly tragic. Surprising no one, our saddest Futurama moment is the ending of Jurassic Park. There's a reason why this episode is infamous, not just in the Futurama fandom, but in the animation fandom as a whole. Call it overrated if you want, it still doesn't detract from how much the ending was a gut punch. Semi-based off the story of Hachiko, this episode introduces Fry's dog, Seymour. They were close, with Seymour being Fry's best friend in the year 2000. When Fry went missing, Seymour chose to wait outside Panucci's Pizza for his friend to return. The tragedy of this ending is twofold. First, Seymour was able to find Fry frozen, but was unable to free him due to Fry's parents not noticing. Seymour was so close to getting his best friend back, but it wasn't meant to be. The second part is Fry's assumption, when he learns that Seymour lived to be 13 years old, a reasonable age of death for a dog. When he hears this, Fry believes that because Seymour lived a full life, he likely forgot all about Fry, and as such, Fry decides to let him rest in peace. The episode closes with the aptly titled song, I Will Wait For You, and if you aren't tearing up by that point, you may want to get your eyes checked. Unlike many of the other sad moments on this list, there is no moment of levity or something that makes it more bittersweet than purely sad. Fry and Seymour are together in other episodes, like Bender's Big Score and Game of Tones, but those episodes were made years after this, which meant that audiences had to sit with this ending for a while. But even with these scenes, they can't erase the heartache we feel when we rewatch this episode. So, we had no choice but to give this moment the title of Saddest Futurama Moment. Alright guys, that's the sad list. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos, but most importantly, stay wicked.